It's a Friday edition of the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980, and I'm having a giggle because it's Friday, so I'm working from the home studio, which the bosses are nice enough to let me do, or have forgotten that I do and don't care because they ain't working at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Just kidding, Drabby. I know you're listening to this show somewhere, sometime, some way. But I'm getting ready to open the show, and back down the line, as they say in the business, I just hear Anthony go, "You here?"
Had to ask.
You didn't know where I was, Anthony, on your board.
I did not.
You didn't know whether it was on the old Comrex 1 or Comrex 2.
No, I did not.
Well, did you listen to the Junkies back in the day when I was a reporter? And they used to call, because I had a Comrex at my house before everyone did. This is before 2020 when we all realized we could work from home if we needed to. But I had one in my house because I would do hits on all the shows, or occasionally I'd take it on the road with me and do my stuff when I was traveling, covering the team. And they called it the Hoffrex.
Oh, I did not know that.
That's a lurch term, I believe. Craig's on the Hoffrex. Or maybe that was a Grant and Danny thing.
Hoffrex.
Yeah.
All right.
So now I'm not going to tell you whether I'm on Comrex 1 or Comrex 2. I'm going to be like, I'm on the Hoffrex, and you got to figure it out.
All right. I'll just look up there next time.
Yeah. Or I could just tell you. Typically, I'm on 2. You know why I'm on 2? Because that was my number when I played sports.
That's my favorite number.
Are you a number 2 guy on the jersey?
For most of my life, I was number 2. When I started playing Pop Warner, I wore number 21 for Sean Taylor.
That's a good one. Yeah. Mine started with Little League. We were the Yankees one year. That was not a choice. Nobody judged me for that. You're assigned a team. And, I got the last jersey left, but somehow it was number 2. And this is when Derek Jeter was one of the best 5 players in baseball.
I'm about to say that's dope.
And I was sick. And I just kind of kept it. It's my number ever
yeah.
since. So anyway, that's how we're starting the show today. I'm on Comrex 2. Anthony, we have updates from around the NFL on multiple fronts, including a couple of new Commander signings. But the first one that just came through for the Commanders is Nate Herbig, who you might have been like, wait, isn't his name Nick? No, that's his brother. Herbig brothers both played in Pittsburgh last year. Nate is an offensive lineman who's played most of his career for the Jets. He actually started at center for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year and then missed a ton of time with a torn rotator cuff. But his PFF numbers are pretty good. He was a pretty good player in New York. Rotational piece, never really a full-time starter, but started a bunch of games. He never he moved around. He's kind of their swing guy in the O-line. But he's now... he's still not old. I mean, it's a 1-year deal, but this is a guy that I assume would be in the mix to, at the very least, be the interior swing guy. Could be Sam Cosmi's replacement to start the season, but I also wonder if he could just flat out win the left guard job over Nick Allegretti. He and Allegretti are probably pretty similar style players. I definitely think it's going to come down to who plays better in camp. And then honestly, Anthony, something we haven't really talked about because it's March and we don't need to talk about this yet, but here we are now. What else are we going to talk about? There's 2 guard spots open to start the year, and then Sam's going to come back, and then there's 1 guard spot open. Let's say that Allegretti, for continuity's sake, stays at left guard, and then Herbig plays right guard. If Herbig way outplays Allegretti, there's no rule that says you can't just kick him over and be like, all right, Sam's back, he's right guard. Nate, you're playing left. Get your best 5 on the field. Let's go. So in some ways, you have an open tryout. Now, with consequences, but a tryout with consequences the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is of the season until Sam Cosmi gets back. There's no reason that can't be why it is, and that would be, every bit of how this organization and this team operates because they thrive on competition.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we sort of kind of saw that last year, deciding to go with Trent Scott over Michael Dieter, who has guard/center experience. They wanted to, put their best 5 out there, and, it ended up being, 2 right tackles on the right side of the line. So, again, I think they're going to do, what best works for everybody, and it's going to come down to competition at the end of the day.
I think it's going to make training camp more fun because I think you might have multiple competitions. I know they're saying Coleman's at right tackle, but if Wiley has a really good camp and Coleman struggles, and depending on if they're cross-training him at guard, I do wonder if we still wind up with a Brandon Coleman at guard situation. Because ultimately, like, you want to have your best 5 out there, which is more complicated than it sounds, because you got to have the 5 that work together out there. If a dude's, if you got 2 centers that are really good, putting one of them at tackle is probably not going to help you a whole lot. You need your best 5-man combo out there, not necessarily just your 5 best guys when it comes to like Madden rating. That works in Madden. It doesn't really work in real life. Why are you smiling like you do that, Anthony?
Because I do.
Yeah. I that one I could have known from. I don't need I don't need Darius to come down from the other studio and complain about the Madden League on that one. That one I knew. It's one thing when you switch a guy from right guard to left guard. You put centers at tackle. You definitely do that.
Nah, I put a center at right guard, and then I put my left tackle rookie that I drafted at right tackle.
That's not breaking the rules too much.
Yeah, not too crazy.
Nothing heinous. But anyway, the point is, in real life, you got to get your best 5. And if Coleman is clearly not working out at tackle, I don't know that they force it any longer. Not that you're forcing it. I'm not predicting that. Like, he was fine last year, showed some real promise. And if he can figure out some of the things that he struggled with last year at left tackle at right, then sweet. But I think that's kind of interesting what happens at right tackle. Now you got some nice bodies to battle it out on the interior. And really, outside of Tunsil at left tackle and Biotish at center, nothing's settled for the Commanders' offensive line in a way that's good, right? Yeah, of course, it would be better. It'd be best if we knew, because they had 5 studs across the way. But they'll probably also draft someone. So where does that improbable interior person or potential tackle fit into the mix? So there's a lot of decisions to make that they'll, some, unfortunately, the reality is will be made for them injury-wise, because that happens every camp on every O-line across the league. Hopefully nothing major happens there. But we'll also see in preseason games and in camp how that all goes down. And ultimately, we'll be monitoring it here on the Hoffman Show, starting in OTAs, which are 2 months away at this point. Now, none of those guys are going to have to block Dante Fowler in training camp. They will have to block him twice a year in the division. Fowler today leaves 1 year, $8 million to go back to the Cowboys. This is a guy that's been with Dan Quinn in multiple spots, but clearly he did not like the offer that he got from Washington. I don't know how much lower it was than the $8 million he ultimately gets from the Cowboys, Anthony. But he was going off this weekend on Twitter of like, these guys, I'm so much better, blah, blah, blah. I can't believe the disrespect. And like, on some level, I get it, to be fair to Dante, because he had, 10.5 sacks last year? Like, that's a pretty good year. But he also did a bunch of crazy stuff against the run and was unreliable and is probably better off in a smaller role than he had last year. And for that reason, like, he's going to get paid like a rotational guy. And Dallas paid him as a good rotational guy, which he is. But I don't know that Washington, for whatever reason, it seemed like they didn't want to go in that direction. And for a guy that Dan Quinn knows really well and has had in multiple stops and knew him back when they were both at Florida, if I'm remembering correctly, or there's at least some ties there. It's a interesting move to see him go back in the division.
Yeah, definitely interesting. But also a little sad to see this guy go, just because he was our only double-digit sack guy last year. So again, I think this entire offseason we've been asking questions: who's going to fill the void at edge, kind of thing. And we got some guys that they've brought in. They've beefed up the defensive line, but at the same token, we still want a more complete guy, one guy that's going to be able to do both. And we don't know if we have that guy just yet. So it's a little weird.
So, I mean, yes and no, right? Because who's a better football player overall? Dietrich Wise or Dante Fowler? And I know that might sound like a crazy question, but I'm telling you guys, Dietrich Wise is better than you think. Like, this is where, as fans and as people who aren't pro scouts, who spend our entire life studying this league and trying to find every dude, this is where we get ourselves in trouble, because we've heard of Dante Fowler, right? I was laughing so hard. Do you get the NFL Network mobile alerts, by the way, Anthony?
No, I don't get those.
So they've been doing this bit where they want you to click on the alert because that's probably good for their numbers. Like, oh, these generated the X amount of clicks, and then they can go sell that because that's how business works in 2025 because we're broken as a society. But the NFL Network alert for Dante Fowler is this. Just in, after 10.5 sacks and a 67-yard touchdown in 2024, the number 3 pick of the 2015 draft is changing teams. And they want you to click on it and be like, who is it? I know it's Dante Fowler because ESPN sent out an alert saying, or from Adam Schefter saying, Dante Fowler, or there actually was a generic alert. Pass rusher Dante Fowler agrees to a contract with the Cowboys. So, like, I don't need to click on that. I could check my phone and be like, okay, we're good. But because he's the number 3 in the pick in the draft in 2015 and he's a big name and he had a bunch of sacks, people think, like, oh, he's a better player. Snap in, snap out, Dietrich Wise is probably a better football player. And he might do more of what they want from that edge position, especially on first and second down. Now, I have no file on Jacob Martin, who they signed last night. He is, other than what I can read you biographically, he's 6'2", 242. So he's a guy that's a lot smaller, a lot quicker in theory. Was a 6th-round pick of Seattle back in 2018. And in his career, he's got 21 sacks. So there's your guy with pass rush juice. Just none of us have ever heard of Jacob Martin. But if they like him and they can get the most out of him, then sweet. Like, go for it. And he cost you $3 million, which is $5 million less than what Dante Fowler just got paid for the Cowboys. And from like a work ethic or whatever standpoint, a humility standpoint, he's probably more willing to be a backup than Dante Fowler was. And so, again, that's not I feel like that came off a little stronger than I wanted to be anti-Dante Fowler. But if all of a sudden you're rolling in with a draft pick, Dietrich Wise, Jacob Martin, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Dorrance Armstrong, again, it's a floor. And then we'll see how good the draft pick is, and that's going to establish the ceiling. But there's no one they could have signed that's out there. I mean, I guess Azeez Ojulari is the closest you're going to get. But realistically, I don't know how much better Azeez Ojulari is than Jacob Martin.
Yeah, I just know how good he has been and has played against the Commanders, and I'd be willing to kick the wheels. But, you know, that they are the evaluators. I trust them, so, oh well.
Pass rush grade, Jacob Martin last year in Chicago, 67, 71 the year before in Indy. Was just below 60. It was 59.6 the year before that. And then 69, 60, 59, 69 in his first 4 years between Seattle and Houston. I mean, in 2021 in Houston, he graded out as a 67 overall on PFF. He had 4 sacks that year, but he had 700 snaps. Like, he played a lot. And then last year, 3 sacks, 11 hurries, 17 pressures in just 222 snaps. Again, those aren't amazing numbers, but the guy's got a little bit of juice. We'll see.
Limited reps as well, though.
So, like, if he's battling to make the team and probably is a decent special teams player, cool. Hopefully, he doesn't make the team or he's just a special teams player because they find someone better than that. But this is about the floor. And Dante Fowler's clearly better, but what happens if you then draft a guy at an edge at 29 and then Dante's like, I want more reps? And I think based off his tweets, I wonder if that was a problem is I guess what I'll say about that.
Yeah.
All right. When we get back, we will dive into a little bit more of the news around the NFL. And then Clinton Yates joins us at 4:30. Weekend preview, 4:45. We are going to do a Friday edition of Never Read the Comments at 5. And Chris Noi ahead of Maryland taking on or going into the Big 10 quarterfinals tonight, coming off of the double bye. We will talk to Noi at 5:30, then give way to Maryland basketball at 6. Short show on a Friday here on the Hoffman Show.
let nobody
Hoffman Show. We're on the
press up
Team
and mess up the
980. We're
scene.
always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Clinton Yates in about 5 minutes. Just real quick, Anthony, the other big story that's kind of floating around the NFL right now. Apparently, the Bengals have made, quote-unquote, significant progress on contract extensions for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 million combined. I wonder exactly what the whether it's like 38 for Chase, 32 for T, something like that. But that's the average annual value that's expected. And I know this because every single NFL insider tweeted the same thing 90 seconds apart about it, all using the same exact language. I wonder if they all have the same source. I wonder who that could be when T. Higgins and Jamar Chase share an agent.
Man, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of cheddar. $70 million to the wide receiver room?
It's
unheard
a lot,
of.
But when Joe Burrow, who you're going to pay like 60 something on his own, wants
that
it,
too.
you say yes, sir, yes, sir. Take us to the promised land, sir. Thank you, sir.
Take us back anyway. Take us back.
Yeah, at some point, if I decide that I don't want to have a career anywhere else, that none of the big shops ever that I would want to employ me, if I say I'm not going to ever work there, I'm going to badmouth them in the worst way. Maybe I'll do a more intense version of this rant. But I have integrity. I will do a small version of this rant now. The insider bit being shameless of just being a mouthpiece for the agents or the teams or whoever, their source, is freaking embarrassing. Maybe I did go there. Like, you don't have to copy and paste the text message. You could practice this magical thing called journalism and take the information and then write it yourself or say it yourself. You don't have to say, one of the great such and suches of all time, one of the best players left on the market. Do your job. Get us the information in a way that's not embarrassing for you and maybe your family and certainly the people that employ you. Anthony, scrub that from the internet. For those that heard it live, you got the full version of the rant. And to all the places that employ them, if you want to pay me TV money, I'm available for hire.
That's a pitch.
I'll tell the truth. I'll do my job at a high level. Hopefully, here's the thing. People still tell me stuff. I had an interview today, Anthony, with the CEO of the Washington Spirit.
Uh-oh.
I'm interviewing for a job there. I interviewed her, and actually, once this, I gotta put that on the internet here in a minute. But that'll be on the Hoffman W Sports page expeditiously. But they've been doing kind of this wackadoodle rebrand in slow motion, and we talked about it on our women's soccer show. And I literally go, Kim, I'd be a coward if I didn't ask you this, so I'm going to ask you straight to your face. This rebrand, it seems to be happening in slow motion. What's going on? Sometimes you just got to ask the questions, because I'm not having negative opinions from the place of malice. I clearly don't have all the information. You give me the information. And if the answer is not good, I'm probably not going to change my opinion. So just don't be afraid to ask tough questions. Do good journalism. People will tell you stuff. Don't quit embarrassing yourself with the free agent signings. Looking like a doofus in a tweet is not worth it. The agent will still tell you first. That's my rant. Clinton Yates is next. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are 15 minutes away from the weekend preview, which Clinton Yates is brought to you by
nobody. I learned.
Yeah, you learned the bit. Clinton's in on the bit. Clinton's in on the bit because he's with us every week in this time on Fridays. Always good to talk to you, my friend. Of course, the host of Clinton and Friends on ESPN Radio, which you can listen to in the ESPN app daily in the mornings. All right, Clinton. Obviously, we'll get to a little bit of sports stuff in a second, but one of the big stories of the week is the loss of a legend, a titan of the industry, John Feinstein. You were colleagues at the Post when you were here in town. I don't know how close you were with John. Obviously, everyone's got a John story, though, and I'm sure you grew up reading him as well as then working with him. So what's your Feinstein story?
So I didn't know John. I was not in community with John, but I would see John, obviously, around, whether it be at baseball games, occasionally at, a college basketball game. And one particular game I saw him, this was fascinating to me. For those of you who read John Feinstein or knew who he was, he went on and on and on and on about how the fact that Georgetown and Maryland never played was half the reason why he was constantly in Philadelphia covering the Big Five, because he felt that the DMV's college basketball scene was not robust enough in terms of the rivalries in town. This was like a big part of his platform. And when they finally did play, I can't remember what year it was now. I mean, this was 5 or 6 years ago when they finally got together and the Hoyas played the Terps in College Park at Comcast Center. And it was a huge deal. Like, I covered it. And I remember thinking at the time, not I'm in the big time, but I was like, man, this is electric. SVP was there.
Huge. Yeah.
They did Sports Center from the court, all that. And I remember thinking, man, Junior, as he was known, I know that from listening to Tony Kornheiser's show, not that I called him that, but I said he must be elated. He finally got his dream. And lo and behold, my seat was literally right next to John's. So here I am sitting next to John, and he's talking about the whole game and all the buildup. And he's all, previously I'd seen him back, in the trenches talking to different people. And then he left at halftime. It was the funniest thing in the world. I was like, are we serious? But that's just the kind of guy he was. When he decided he was done with something, he was. And he fought effectively his entire professional career for this game to happen. And he just had better things to do by the time it came around. Very fun.
I would highly recommend anyone listening that wants some good Feinstein stuff to go read Dan Steinberg's. Our friends, your old colleague at the Post, who's still an editor. He was John's editor. His recollections and his thread on Twitter. It was just so funny because he's like, I heard someone earlier today say John never made it about him. No, that's incorrect. He always made it about him, and I feel like the story you just told is perfectly great.
I will never forget it. Ever forget it.
Titan of the industry, not always the easiest guy, was certainly the reputation, but no doubt. You and I were texting earlier. Hell of a writer, unbelievable journalist in the way he did the job.
Knew how to make things interesting that I didn't care about, which is half the job.
100%. It is one of the great skills of this industry. All right, NFL free agency, Clinton. I know how to make that interesting. There's a formula: winners and losers. Pew 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 pew. Fireworks. Who do you like? Do you like the winners and losers framing, or is there another way you prefer to talk about it?
I'm just thinking about it now because we did discuss this earlier, and I sort of put it together in my head. I think. And I'm not just saying this because I live in Los Angeles, but I think the Rams are big winners. I think the addition of Devontae, I think they've added a couple pieces. And I also think that being able to kind of responsibly move on from Cooper Kupp and actually get an upgrade is huge for them. Never mind the fact that they kept Stafford. I mean, that's massive. Sometimes it's not just about who you gain, it's about who you keep. And the Rams did a fantastic job with that. I was talking about this on the show yesterday. It is a little awkward because Cooper Kupp was a guy that was revered. I mean, he was the offensive player of the year they went to the Super Bowl, and they won it at home. To think that he became expendable because the Rams believe effectively that their system is greater than any single player was tough. But Devontae Adams is an upgrade. Sorry. You know what I'm saying? There's just no world around that. And for me, I think that the Rams somehow, even though they were this close to going toe-to-toe with the eventual Super Bowl champions, got better. Another team that got better.
Well, hold on real quick before we go another one.
Yeah.
I've been asking the question all week. Is there anybody in the contender category who has had as good of an offseason as Washington? because they haven't really lost anybody of
Sure.
significance, unless you count John Allen, which I really don't because he didn't play that much last year, and I think he's very replaceable. And then they lose Dante Fowler. He just signed with the Cowboys, whatever, an hour ago, and he was a big sack guy, but he was ultimately a rotation piece. But they bring in Laramie Tunsil. And the other team that I brought up that I think actually has had as good of an offseason is the Rams, retaining Stafford. And then I agree, Devontae, with what they need right now, where Devontae is in his career, where he's still got a lot of juice, and Cooper, where we're not sure how much juice he has left. I think the Rams are one of the few teams. Not that either of them have surpassed the Eagles or the Lions from a roster on paper standpoint, but I do think those teams have moved the needle maybe more than anyone else this offseason. Broncos is the other team that's getting thrown around that I like a lot.
I don't disagree with that at all, and I think the Commanders are also in that phase of figuring out whether or not being better off actually makes you a better team. So getting rid of Allen, as you said, right, might help them out in terms of, roster management and all that, but you don't necessarily know if you've improved, and that's fine. Let's not act like they weren't ahead of schedule to begin with. And while I don't necessarily believe that being ahead of schedule means you should not keep your foot on the gas, I do think there's something to be said for, you can still retool some things. Just because you had a nice season doesn't mean you need to keep every single thing intact. The question is whether or not your squad is going to go overboard with it. And next thing you know, you've got a completely different team and a completely different makeup in your locker room. So I would agree with that. The Commanders have done well. The second team I was going to say is the Raiders. I really, really enjoy the way that they've kind of moved themselves into the conversation. Getting Pete Carroll, I realize he's the oldest coach in the league, but he's got pep in his step. Project. Like, this guy was on his, close to being out of the league when it came to what his career was, and he really found himself. So I love what they've done there, and I'm really interested to see what they do in the draft, because not only do they have a top 10 pick, which could pick up an Aston Genty, a guy I love, but they also have a very high second-round pick, Craig. And you know that at that position, you can find a guy that can play right away. That's not unheard of in terms of NFL rosters being made up through the draft that way. So I like the Raiders as a winner as well in that particular situation. And I think in that division they got a shot.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are maybe as good of a who's the Commanders next year team.
Yeah,
obviously the past 2 years, it was the Texans and the Commanders who both had the number 2 pick. They got the quarterback, and the quarterback was way better than we thought. Geno's really good, and that pains me because for a long time I was a Geno Smith hater.
You were a hater?
He was. It goes back to a whole college thing when he was at West Virginia and some games for Syracuse, and it's personal in that way. But no, and then obviously I just think there was an arrogance he had earlier in his career, and he obviously was humbled by the way his career went, and I think he really got to work and obviously was willing to take a back seat, be a backup, learn, and then came back once he got his opportunity. It has been probably underrated of how good he is. He's a top 12 quarterback for most of the last, if not a top 10 quarterback in some of the last 5 years. And so, new quarterback, new coach, new new locker room, new mantra, new everything, new play style. Pete knows what the hell he's doing. Geno's really good. Brock Bowers might be the best tight end in football already. So they've got some weaponry on offense. And so if they can get an Ashton Genty and then, I don't know, a stud receiver who turns out to be way better than everyone thinks in the second round, or, clean up some things on defense, I think they're a really interesting team in a very, very tough division. That division is brutal. That is, I think, very different than the Texans in the AFC South and Washington and with Dallas and New York puking all over each other and themselves last year in the NFC East. But I do think that's a great shout on the Raiders and a team to keep an eye on in 2025.
Absolutely. As far as losers are concerned, I don't know what the Seahawks are doing. I was asking Mina Kimes about this on the show, and the word she used was puzzling. And you never want to hear that word when it comes to off-season plans for an NFL
That wasn't
franchise.
a very nice thing to do as Mina's friend. Why did you ask her about the Seahawks? She is not in a good place about it.
I know, but that's why I had to bring it up because, there's an analyst look at it and there's a fan look at it. And she said, as a fan and an analyst, this is ridiculous. And listen, it's one thing to move on from Geno Smith because you just don't think he's the guy. Okay. But then to get rid of Metcalf, what? And then to sign Darnold for that much money, that's a little bit bigger than a bridge quarterback. And listen, I say it all the time. Quarterback is the worst coach position in the league. And I think Darnold's early part of his career, he suffered from a little of that. Some situations that weren't quite great. And you saw how much he could thrive in Minnesota. But Seahawks ain't Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what they're thinking in that regard. So they would be a definite loser as far as I'm concerned.
Here's the thing with Seattle. I'm not a big DK guy. I think what they got in return is fine, and I would not want to pay him what Pittsburgh paid him.
Okay.
But when you do it and you hit the and if you're going to then trade Geno, that's the mystery part, right? If you're going to do both those things, because like DK is not a bad football player either, right? Like if you can convince him to stay around and be happy and you keep him and Geno, like you've got a chance to compete for that division. If you're going to hit the reset button, why are you spending $100 million on a bridge quarterback? Like you can't do both. And so that's the part I don't get. Like if you want to take a big step back this year, we got a young coach. We got a bunch of young pieces.
Right.
Let's take a flyer on a third-round quarterback. Let's draft Jackson Dart in the second round, or we'll trade back in the first round. Whatever. Do that. And if it works out, great. You got your next Russell Wilson, cheap quarterback. Didn't plan on this working, but it did. That's worked in Seattle before. To go get Sam Darnold for $100 million after trading Geno Smith, just because he's younger, like he's younger, but he's also worse. What are you doing?
Yeah, very short-sighted move. And I mean, I guess somebody there believes in Darnold to take them to the promised land. But that, to me, it doesn't make sense from either a talent evaluation or a timeline standpoint either. And so I'm with you. And I would be pretty bummed if I was a Seahawks fan because that just doesn't work for me.
Although they've had a good run. They've been like oddly competitive for a decade and a half. And then like really there was that stretch. Well, because like Russ was awesome, and it made sense then. And then they've had this like stretch with Geno, and I feel like there's some other guys in between who I'm not even remembering. I guess Russ was just there, and he just wasn't the same as old.
Yeah,
Russ.
he just right.
Or like somehow you'd look up and the Seahawks were in the playoffs every year. Like there was a stretch where they were the best team in football. Like them and the Niners were killing each other every single year.
Yeah.
But then they just kind of kept being good. And then, even going back for older Seahawks fans, like you had the Hasselbeck and the Sean Alexander years and all them. So like they've been good mostly for a long time. But
solid franchise. Very weird move for a franchise that's typically pretty prudent.
Yeah. But also their general manager, who's widely considered one of the best in the league, also really doesn't believe in like paying guards. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to work in the modern NFL. When ask Mina about that one. You want to see Mina's head explode? No, ask Mina about.
I have no desire to put any of my friends in situations where they are angry about the teams that they like.
Fair enough.
Man.
Fair
As
enough.
For that, also, though, I'm still sort of the Steelers are still in an in-between phase for me. Know that I have convinced myself that they're going to find a better option than Russell Wilson. Like, I get it. There's some level of fatigue within the organization about him, but look around, Jack.
Would you rather have Russ or Aaron?
Again, I would rather have Russell, but
same.
I mean, I just don't know.
And that's not an endorsement of Russell.
No. Aaron Rodgers is I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, but that's
Clinton,
just me.
This is a real thing I said to Linnell in the hallway yesterday.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
I literally look at him and I go, I would rather lose than have Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, wow. I mean, look, I just don't feel that at an organization, sort of not even just a legacy organization, what I would call a heritage organization for the NFL, that you want a guy like Aaron Rodgers coming in kind of mucking things up. Like he's a little too... It's
Circus?
not to say that he's but I mean, like on top of the fact that the football might not be there, that just feels like a very weird fit. Like, why would you want this guy? You've got a whole history of effectively decent operators in terms of who you deal with. And all of a sudden, this dude you want at a late stage of his career when he's already kind of mouthy and annoying and he's not that good. Like that doesn't fit at all to me. I don't care if Tomlin can keep all his guys in line. It's a weird fit for me. And I don't know. And he's taking all sorts of time to do it too, which is also just really annoying. I do not like, as much as I would love it for the circus, I think if I was a Steelers fan, I'd be furious if they were courting this guy the way that they are.
Speaking of like taking care of our friends, for my dear friend Brooke Pryor, who covers the Steelers for your outfit, please don't do that to Brooke. Please. The woman's been through enough. It's Clinton Yates, everybody. You can catch him weekday mornings on the ESPN app and on your local ESPN radio station, Clinton and Friends. Also on television, he's writing. He's doing it all because he's a multimedia superstar, and he's on the show every Friday. Clinton,
you're welcome. We talked about Denzel Washington movies all morning because basically he spoke to Prime's team over video chat, and basically all the callers were like, well, I like this Denzel movie. And I got to tell the story about how one time my school, Washington International School, was in the movie, the 1993 mystery thriller, The Pelican Brief. So check that out, kiddos.
There's a podcast. You can check it out there.
Very well.
Up next, the weekend preview brought to you by
nobody. What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.
Show from Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Damn, that song is loud, Anthony. Love it.
It was.
Love the Nelly
My
beat
bad.
as much as anybody. I was like, hello! Coming up at 5 o'clock, special Friday edition of Never Read the Comments in lieu of Not My Beat today. Because for all intents and purposes, Not My Beat's going to be at 5:30. Chris Noi's going to join us, help preview the Big 10 Tournament and Maryland's spot in it. They get going tonight with the double bye. But right now it is time for the weekend preview, brought to you by...
Nobody, Craig.
Your dramatic pause felt different than Clinton's dramatic pause. Maybe it's because I could see you like building to it. Clinton, I told Clinton, I was like, you paused almost long enough that I thought you had forgotten the bit. But he nailed it right on the edge. You got a few more reps. Anyway, weekend preview. Take a look at what's going on this weekend across the world of sports. There's a ton to get to. Let's start off with the college basketball. The women are obviously done at this point, but their selection Sunday is Sunday. And then the men's selection Sunday is this Sunday as well, which comes right on the heels of the end of their conference tournaments. Cooper Flagg is out for the rest of the ACC tournament. John Shire said Flagg is a long shot to play this weekend. Duke UNC tonight, 7 p.m. on ESPN. UNC's number 5 in this tournament, Duke number 1, but they'll be without Flagg. So, Anthony, when you actually were the one who told me that Flagg went down in the game yesterday, I didn't have it on while I was prepping for the show, and at first I think you thought he had like some kind of crazy injury, and I was like, oh no, for Wizards reasons. Not that I want him to be hurt at all, obviously on a human level, but I was like, oh, did the NBA draft just change? But I think he should be back. It's a rolled ankle, nasty one. Going to probably keep him out tonight, probably keep him out over the weekend. But Cooper Flagg is done for the rest of the ACC tournament, and barring a miracle. SEC tournament semis are at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Auburn takes on the winner of Alabama, and then Kentucky or Texas versus Tennessee. Do I have that right, Anthony? Your punctuation here in this document is there's a lot of ors and verses and no real breaks in the action.
Yeah, because nobody knows like how the tournament is going to break down. So I just put Auburn will take on one of the winners of Bama versus Kentucky, or they'll take on the winner of Texas Tennessee, what's actually going on behind me right now, but it's really hard to tell.
Okay,
we don't know where
shouldn't they get the winner of? Oh, because it's a type of thing where depends on who wins. It's not a straight bracket. It's a dynamic seeding. That's what it's called.
Exactly.
Oh. SEC getting funky.
I was struggling trying to compile this list.
That's why I said don't worry about the teams. Just tell me when the things are. All right, SEC tournament semis. They start tomorrow at 1 o'clock. The Big 10 tournament semis start tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Michigan State is the 1 seed there. They might get the winner of Maryland, Illinois, or Michigan, Purdue. See, I could read that one. ACC championship Saturday night. That's at 8:30. Obviously, the winner of Duke UNC goes in that one, and then Clemson versus Louisville is the other semifinal tonight after the Blue Blood battle. Big East Championship Saturday night, Marquette versus St. John's, and then, of course, the Big 10 final on Sunday is always traditionally the last one. You got the ACC final on Sunday, SEC final on Sunday as well for Selection Sunday. All right. Other than that, in the world of sports, it's a huge opening weekend for two big leagues. The NWSL opens tonight. The Spirit won the Challenge Cup last week. That's the preseason tournament, if you will. It's a one-game tournament. So they won a trophy last week. They take on Houston tonight. Orlando, who they beat and who is the defending champion, as well as the defending Shield winner, the best regular season team from last year. They are playing tonight as well. Oh, my God, I'm blanking on who they are playing. Orlando Pride. They are facing Chicago, the Stars tonight, newly branded as the Chicago Stars. They used to be the Red Stars, Anthony. Now they're the Stars.
Okay. Do you know why they changed?
No, it's very stupid because the Red Stars are like in the Chicago flag, there are red stars. Yeah. It was like Chicago. This is a side rant. We've talked about brands a lot on this show, right? Branding and the Commanders and the whole deal. Chicago had what every team dreams of, a very distinct, identifiable with the city brand Their colors were the Chicago flag. They were the Red Stars, the Chicago flag. Everything about it said Chicago. And they were like, change to the Stars.
And you hate it.
Blah. So dumb. So dumb. Also this weekend, Formula One back in action. They had their first practices overnight, United States time, but they are perfectly in the middle of the day, Australia time. So qualifying overnight tonight, and then the race will be overnight on Saturday night into Sunday, a.k.a. Anthony, I will wake up and watch it on Sunday morning on
I was
demand.
about to say, I know you ain't watching that.
No, I'm not watching. It was kind of fun last night watching practice at 9:30 p.m.
Nice.
I was like, let me flip this on, because normally practice, a lot of times for the European races, practice one is like at 4:30 in the morning our time. I ain't watching that either.
Yeah.
I watch it eventually as like I eat my breakfast on demand. Got that F1 TV subscription. But
Love that for you, man.
yeah, we'll see. Tomorrow I got a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know when I'm going to be able to watch everything tomorrow, but I will eventually at some point. Looking forward to it. So NWSL gets going this weekend. Full slate of games. They got an ESPN game tomorrow. They got another one, or an ABC game tomorrow. They got another one on Sunday. Formula One back in action. College basketball all weekend long. Nationals wrapping up spring training. Opening day is just around the corner. Anything else of note, Anthony? Obviously NBA action this weekend. I did just see that Luka's out for their game against the Nuggets for the Lakers. That sucks.
Lakers are about to lose like 8 straight.
Yeah, they were rolling. And then
They
LeBron
were,
went.
and then LeBron got hurt.
And now Luka's a little banged up. That's not good. So Cavs, 15 straight again. Isn't that like the second time this year they've won 15
good,
straight?
Man.
They look insane. NBA playoffs are going to be dope this year. March Madness is going to be dope this year too. So excited for that. And of course, Selection Sunday is on Sunday. All right, when we get back, we'll get back into some of the free agency stuff and the offseason for the Commanders in a Friday edition of Never Read the Comments. It's the final hour on a Friday of the Hoffman Show. Coming up at 6, pregame for Maryland in the Big 10 Tournament. 5:30, we preview it with Chris Noi, of course, Maryland sports color analyst here on the Hoffman Show. It's March. It means it's Noi's time of year. And normally our time to do Never Read the Comments, a segment where we, ironically, read the comments, is 5:30 on Thursdays. But yesterday our schedule got a little jumbled with some news and all the things that we've been talking about and dealing with. And so we're looking at the rundown today, and we said, you know, we have a spot. Let's read some comments.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, this one's pretty much a Commanders free agency edition, and I should call it a Commanders off-season edition, Anthony, because the first comment, I cannot stress this enough, makes me want to quit.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Just the way people are in comments, not necessarily, like, of course there's people that are rude or whatever, and I haven't really actually checked the rude file in a while because YouTube does a pretty good job of censoring some of that stuff. And sometimes I go in to clear out that stuff and I'm like, whoa, people got wild. Do they know that their names are attached to this? Not that. Just like, what could possibly make you comment this? Canon Dune FV7CQ. Terrible free agency. Trades are the only thing that makes it look better. Their defense isn't much better than last year. And let's say for a second you don't love what they've done defensively and you want to say defense isn't much better than last year. It's a reasonable take. Terrible free agency. Trades are the only thing that make it look better. What?
Nah, that actually is funny.
Think about it for 5 seconds before you type and hit enter. What? You don't get bonus points if they're free agents. The point is to become a better football team. Oh, I made all my money in investments, not salary. What? Are you rich or not? Like, yeah, sometimes it matters. I got all my calories from donuts instead of lean protein. Okay, you might have some slightly different health outcomes on your 2,000 calorie a day diet there. When it comes to building a football team, there are no bonus points for spending more money in free agency. The free agency crop was terrible because the cap jumped $20 million 2 years in a row, which meant all of the incumbent teams kept all of their good players. Why, Anthony?
I don't know. That was a ridiculous comment, to be honest. It's sort of kind of, I guess common sense isn't common for everybody, Craig.
Bruh.
And that's the harsh reality.
Bruh. Oh, my. Yeah, the free agency crop wasn't good. As like a market. There was no good vegetables at the farmer's market. So I went to the grocery store. I went to my neighbor's house and said, hey, do you have any fresh tomatoes? Need them for a recipe. Oh, it doesn't count. You got them from your neighbor. Buzz off. Stupid. Don't be stupid on purpose. Sometimes it happens to all of us. Trust me. I'm live on the radio for nearly 15 hours a week. We got plenty of stupid captured on camera. Anthony and I have done some incredibly dumb stuff. Most of it, not on purpose. There was that time that I ate hot wings on the air, and that was bad.
Yeah, that was.
Joe Logan, 1452. I'll be impressed if Kinlaw works out. I have my doubts. If we're using him at end, Josh Sweat signed for around the same money. They're not using him at end. They're very different players. They are going to use him probably some at end, but he's not signing as a defensive end. He's signing as a guy that can play multiple spots. But I think one thing that is important, like this I actually appreciate, because I think fans and also analysts and also, frankly, NFL teams really struggle with the market thing. in terms of how much certain positions cost, because there seems to be massive disagreement on some of these. Some guys are getting crazy money, some guys are getting not a lot of money, and like it doesn't always seem to make sense. But there is clearly some combination of age, production, fit, all those kinds of things that impacts this. And you know, for instance, Javon, I'm not picking them because they have the same first name. I'm picking them because they got the same contract. Javon Kinlaw and Javon Holland, right? Who's a better football player, Anthony?
Javon Holland.
Yeah, they got the same exact money. 3 years, $45 million, roughly a little more than 30 guaranteed. I think Kinlaw got exactly 30. I think Holland got like 32 or 34, something like that. So we got a little bit more guaranteed money. Kinlaw's 27, Holland is 29. But one's a safety and one's a defensive tackle with some position flex to the outside. D linemen are really hard to find. Safeties are not. So even though Javon Holland's way better at playing safety than Javon Kinlaw, it certainly has been at playing defensive tackle, they get the same money. But part of the reason is also because Javon Kinlaw is 6'5", 320 pounds. And he's a freakish athlete. And for all of his shortcomings that people expect of him because of that, don't let that twist what he actually does, which is he occasionally can be a really disruptive penetrator. And there are times versus the run or whatever that he will just stand guys up because he's so brutishly strong. Now, sometimes he gets washed out of gaps because he's plays too high, and those are technique things, and hopefully the Commanders can get better out of him than they've ever gotten. But ultimately, like, markets come down to, this is big boy business talk with your old pal Craig, the sports talk show host. Markets are about supply and demand. There is a huge demand for human beings to play defensive line in the NFL that are 6'3" to 6'6", 290 to, or actually I'm going to say 310 to 340 pounds. There is not a very big supply of them. Demand, large. Supply, small. Advantage, supply side in terms of the pricing. And so Javon Kinlaw got the same money as Javon Holland, not because he's a better player, but because if you had to go find another Javon Holland in the draft, your chances are much higher compared to trying to find another Javon Kinlaw on planet Earth. Your chances are not very high because he's 6'5", 320 pounds and moves really well. That's just not hard to find. And in some ways, like, that is why it's as simple as it is. Some of these edge guys, there are a bunch of 6'2", 240-pound edge players that you're like, can we find a guy in the 6th round who's super twitched up that he just hits in the NFL? Like, that is not easy to find. And the guys that are great at it become first-round picks, for sure. But this is also why you see, you know, if a guy shows a flash that he could be great, he becomes a first-round pick on the edge. But the 6'5", 320-pound D tackle that's got some quickness and some hands and some violence and some athleticism, there ain't 25 dudes on planet Earth that are built like Javon Kinlaw. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean, and I think here's the next level, right? Is like, what do we then do with that information? Like, okay, there aren't 25 dudes on Earth that are like it, but is he actually a good football player? And that's where I think the fun discussion is. That's the part that I think is hard. But you can't invent another Javon Kinlaw and find out. You have to take the Javon Kinlaw that exists, and apparently it took this much to get him on the team in terms of the contract. Was that smart or was that silly, Anthony?
No, I think you did a good job of explaining the difference kind of thing.
Okay. I hope it works out. This is another good question, I thought, on the Kinlaw front. From Carey, Khary, LG4ZW. Sure, they picked those numbers themselves. If Kinlaw's deal is the going rate, 3 years, $15 million a year for a 27-year-old defensive tackle who's going to play 500, 600 snaps, right? Is what I said in what this person was responding to. If Kinlaw's deal is the going rate and he's a rotational piece, why is Fowler still unsigned when he's been more productive? Now, this comment was, of course, before Fowler got signed. And, signed versus unsigned is actually kind of a silly way to think about it because Dante didn't have a deal that he liked. Javon did. Okay. I think it's actually more interesting now that he's signed for $8 million for 1 year. And the answer is simple. It's age. Like, Dante Fowler is an older player. You're afraid when he's on the plus side, on my side of 30, Anthony, not your side, although it's coming for you. My side of 30, the older side, even though some of you think I'm 22 and an idiot, then you're always afraid that you're not going to get a longer-term deal because you don't want you don't want to get stuck on the wrong side of an age cliff. A guy has a down year. Now, not only did you have to suffer through the bad year that he had, but you had multiple years. I think the injury risk is probably seen as higher. And because you're not committing long-term, like the money is what it is, sometimes if you're Khalil Mack, you get 18 a year, or you get 18. And if you're, Dante Fowler and you're a rotational piece, then you get 8. Last year, Dante got like 3 or 1 or whatever it was. It was crazy small money. But I think this shows the value of like these first and second down, or a guy that can play 3 downs versus a guy that's best as a rotation piece because Fowler is that. Now, pass rush is very valuable, which is why he got $8 million, and maybe he has a chance to earn even more with some incentives. But like, age is the biggest thing, and like reliability, right? Kinlaw, mostly, unless he has like some major injury, which he has had one. He had the ACL, but he played 17 games last year in New York. And for Fowler, as a guy who's been in and out of the lineup throughout his career, I think you're probably not looking at that. All right, let's see. Where else? Christopher Marston, 44.91. Chin was a loss. Don't sugarcoat it. And he was only 27. So we did okay, but but if we had kept Chin, I would have felt better. We have the draft, but also I just have a feeling the Lattimore trade is going to come back to hurt us. He is not the same player, simply put. I wish we had put that third-round pick this year that we gave up for him because he did nothing last year to help us get to the NFC Championship game. We didn't need him. In fact, he was a liability in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles. Yeah, that game was rough. He was also pretty darn good against Detroit. Detroit didn't want to throw at him, and that helped Mike Sanders still get 2 interceptions. So I wouldn't say he did nothing on the way to the NFC Championship game, but he certainly was disappointing, both on the injury, like can we get him back, and then the blow-ups that he had in multiple playoff games against guys that he was brought in to stop. If he's that player again, then that trade is going to go down as an L for Adam Peters. It just is. Like, I have no problem saying that, but let's not count the chickens before they hatch. And this, again, goes to, I think, the problem where I think they looked at the free agent corners and said, we're not going to want to get into a price war here. And if we can get Lattimore now, thinking, in the middle of last season, if we can get him now, he can help us this season too. So we can either wait on Carlton Davis and DJ Reed, and there's no guarantees those guys even get to market. And if they do get to market, they're going to cost 125% of what we're going to want to pay them because that's how free agency works. And they don't help us this year, and they just like Lattimore better. And I don't necessarily agree with that, considering how Marshawn played last year. I'm not telling you that it's going to work out, but what I am saying is the book is not closed yet. And while it hurts not to have that third-round pick, if Marshawn works out this year, then he's worth it. He's worth more than that third-round pick because he's a first-round talent and a guy that can play at a Pro Bowl level. In fact, he played at an All-Pro level before. So it really comes down to kind of something that I've said multiple times this week, I think, which is the only way to be good at this is not to have some superior plan. It's to execute. You can sign guys in free agency. And we spend way too much time talking about plans. Like, should they go in the draft? Should they go in free agency? Should they make trades? Whatever path you choose is fine. Just be right. If you're going to trade for a player and he sucks, it doesn't matter if, imagine if they got Marshawn Lattimore for a 7th round pick and they stole him. If Marshawn Lattimore sucks, you'd still rather have the 7th round pick. If Laramie Tunsil is still a top 2 tackle in all of football, he grades out on PFF as a 98 this year as a pass protector. Probably be a little high, but he has graded out in the low 90s before. Like, he's been the best pass protecting tackle arguably in the NFL, and he's still a decent run blocker, if not a good run blocker. If he's awesome this year for Washington, then they will have destroyed Houston in that trade because they didn't give up a number 1 pick. That's how this works. If Javon Kinlaw is awesome, then the $15 million is worth it. If Javon Kinlaw stinks, then the $15 million isn't worth it. It's not whether they spent money or didn't in free agency, whether they made trades or not. It is not whether you have a bunch of draft picks. It's how you use them. If you have 5 draft picks and you hit 5 home runs, that's an awesome draft. If you have 10 draft picks and you hit 1 home run and strike out 9 times, that draft sucked. But everyone would have said going into the draft that the team with 10 picks was better than the team with 5 picks. You have to be good at the thing you do. Now, does that say the plan doesn't matter? No. And you are walking a higher wire act because of contracts, because of the fact that the draft is ultimately, on average, a lottery ticket. So how often you hit the lottery depends on how often you play the lottery. So there are strategic decisions to be made. I'm not completely downplaying the idea of nitpicking plans. What I am telling you is that in the modern NFL, and I'm talking the last 2 years, the place that we live right now, where more teams are able to retain their free agents because of the enhanced salary cap space, and the Commanders being in a place where they don't have anybody that fits that bill outside of Quan Martin and Sam Cosmi. Cosmi already signed. Quan a couple years away from an extension. Terry about to get an extension because the last 4 years of drafting have been rubbish. They have to get creative. And the trade market is where they have lived. So, yeah, they're having to take some swings. And by nature, if a team is willing to trade a player, they are willing to trade that player, right? That is self-evident. So there's a reason why they're willing to give up on them. You're not going to get home runs all the time via trade. But the players that they have traded for are a higher caliber and a better pedigree than any single player that signed in free agency this offseason. What Deebo Samuel's career resume looks like, what Laramie Tunsil's career resume looks like, even what Marshawn Lattimore's career resume looks like, is so far and away better than any of the major free agent signings. That is not to say that those guys are going to work out. That is not to say that this is an impeachable strategy. It is merely to acknowledge the fact that there is a chance it's going to work. And an executive with Adam Peters' resume probably deserves some level of the benefit of the doubt versus thinking that this is some gigantic failure before they've even taken a practice snap when a lot of you guys do the same exact thing last year and they went to the NFC Championship game. I'm sorry that has become a hot take, but I'm going to be patient and see what happens and give mild to lukewarm opinions on the way of, hey, this could happen. I think this might happen, but also let's be wary of this. So sorry that's not that exciting. Yes, Anthony.
Yeah. It's also just a lot to factor in when you talk about the trades, just because a lot of people view what the Commanders have been doing is, bringing in all these older players, and now we're seen as, one of the older teams. The thing is, our roster was so bad that we had to, give up draft capital in order to bring in, some of these older guys to make the team better. And the only way to really get younger is through the draft, but you can't do both. So I just think where we are right now,
win the draft with a bunch of guys in their first year, if they all play like Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, exactly.
The roster is not ancient. And the thing is, but they're signing all these one-year deals. Yeah, so they have flexibility.
Uh-huh.
There's actually a great comment that is worth reading here. Being Blindfold says, next year is our free agent year. $100 million now, more than this year, plus Lattimore and Payne likely gone, saving almost 40 more. Hope I make the segment. Big fan. Being Blindfold, you did make the segment. You may never read the comments. Because you're right. They have a boatload of cap space next year. No one in-house to really spend it on. They'll give Terry an extension, and they can probably load a ton of that salary into next year. So that'll be nice for Terry. And then I think Quan might be ready for an extension next year if you want to extend him. They'll have to redo Marshawn if he's good, or they'll let him go. So either way, you're going to have a player that's just coming off a good season, or you'll have an extra, I think it's 16 in cap space by cutting him for 2026. And you're still 2 years away from having to extend Jaden. So, and by the way, the free agent crop next year might include Micah Parsons. Oh, do I have your attention now?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you've been had my attention when you said Micah.
We know he wants to be here.
Yep.
I mean, look, I know. Why did it pull up I'm trying to pull up the 2026 free agents. And it gave me Damian Lillard. I'm like, that's the wrong sport. 2026. Let's see. Filtering the data. Next year, guys like TJ Watt. I mean, right now, T's listed because he is franchise tag. Daniil Hunter, Debo, Trey Smith, Terry, Trey Hendrickson. There's just a ton of dudes that are potentially available next year. George Kittle's available. I mean, these are older players, obviously, but there's also going to be some younger guys that are going to be massive free agents next year. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. See if Washington get in the mix, or if they can make more trades, because they can take on large salaries that other teams that are contenders cannot. So probably worth mentioning that as well. All right, that's Never Read the Comments here on the Hoffman Show. You can leave your comments at the Team 980 at 1067 The Fan on episodes of Take Command, or where most of these come from is my page at Craig Hoffman. So leave your comments there. I read most of them, if not all of them, and then the best ones or the most interesting ones or the ones I want to yell at make the show. When we get back, Chris Noi joins us. I won't yell at him. I will simply ask him how he thinks Maryland's chances are to win the Big 10 tournament, starting off with their quarterfinal tonight against Illinois. live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live as well on YouTube at the Team 980. And it's our pleasure to welcome back to the show our pal Chris Noi, who is getting ready for pregame here in about half an hour. Maryland, Illinois, Big 10 quarterfinals tonight. Coach, how we feeling?
It's an opportunity, Craig, and it's a big time opportunity. You're playing a hot team in a packed arena, and there's a lot on the line for both clubs. So, this is what you do this for, games like this.
What's the atmosphere been like, and what's it been like to watch it the last couple of days? Maryland getting the double bye this year. You're just sitting on your hands, waiting. Now it's finally game day.
Yeah.
What's it been like to watch?
Yeah, the games haven't been very good. Surprisingly, they haven't been particularly close. The one thing, I tell you who's happy is the city of Indianapolis is happy right now because Michigan State won, and they travel really well. Wisconsin won, and they travel even better than Michigan State. So the bars, the hotels, it's a happy town right now, and I'm sure they'll be rooting for Purdue in that last game. We've got to upset the apple cart here and have an outsider get to the semifinals tomorrow.
So if you look at this game tonight, if I just ask you, pregame host style, Chris, what's your keys to the game? What for you stands out for you?
Well, I think the battle inside. I mean, we just dominated them in Champaign when we played them in January, but they were depleted. They'd had some sickness. They'd had some health issues. This team is playing much better. They've put a nice run together, some of which has had come on the road. They got their asses kicked by Duke, a couple of weeks ago, and out of that, they didn't have a full squad in that game, but out of that, they have really played a lot better. Maryland's going to have to rebound well because I'm sure that's going to be a point of emphasis. You also have to force these guys to play defense. Craig, in the game last night, they let an Iowa team that really only had 3 quality players score like 95 points against them. And Illinois is not a great defensive club, and you have to exploit that.
For sure. The bad news for Iowa is that Illinois put up 106. Where does that scoring mostly come from, and what can Maryland do to stop it?
Well, I think that, they shoot a lot of threes. They don't, surprising, I was a little surprised. They only shoot 31% on the season from 3, but in games where they've won, their percentage is more like 40. When they get it going from deep, they're really hard to deal with. They've got a 7-footer, a guy named Ivisic, who did not play against us in the first game, who spreads the floor for him. He's a big, long lefty, great three-point shooter, and a very good high-post passer. So Terps got their work cut out for them, I think, on the defensive end. But we've been pretty solid on the defensive side of things all season long.
Julian and Derek, Julian Reese, Derek Queen, had such big games against Illinois the first time, or earlier in the season when these two teams played. How can Maryland make sure that happens again?
Yeah, you know what? Feed them early and often. You have to, and I know what Illinois is going to scratch back on those guys, double down, and force Maryland to make some jump shots. But those Maryland guards are going to hit jump shots. It's just kind of what they do. You have to be relentless. You have to go to the glass. You have to rebound. You also have to get back on defense. Illinois, when they're playing well again, they play at warp speed. They love to play fast. Maryland's this year scoring 84, 85 a game. They have no problem getting up and down the court. So some of the trick is who's better in transition, it's particularly defensive transition, because, like I said, if the officials let it happen and let them play, there's going to be a lot of breakouts in this game.
Postseason awards. It's Chris Noi with us here on the Hoffman Show. Maryland, Illinois coming up at 6. The pregame begins on the Terrapin Sports Network, of course, flagship here on the Team 980. Postseason awards come out. Queen, first team, all Big 10. Julian Reese, honorable mention. Gillespie, third team. Nothing for Rodney Rice. What do we make of the correctness of the vote there?
Gary Williams, when we were in the ACC, Gary Williams used to say Maryland might as well be in Siberia. And it's the same thing here. We are, even though we've been in the league 10 years, we are not in the heartland, so to speak. We're not a traditional blue blood Big 10 power. And I honestly, I'm used to it. This is not a new story, Craig, nor is it a unique story. it's just a story, and it goes on yearly, and you can almost set your clock by it.
So when you look at Maryland in this this tournament in terms of what's on the line, like obviously a Big 10 championship is nice. You get a trophy. Maryland's going to make the tournament, so the automatic bid is not something that they're going to be sweating on Selection Sunday. But what's our seed range here that we're looking at for the Terps if they were to crash out tonight versus win the whole thing?
Yeah, I think they're solidly, high 5, low 4 right now, solidly. And, even if they were to lose this game, they're playing against a team that's projected, kind of in a similar seed line. So I don't think it crushes you. Winning here tonight and playing into the weekend, it depends on what's happening around you across the country. But, gosh, if you could play your way into a 3 seed, that would be a heck of an accomplishment for a team that started out 1-3 in the conference in January. So there's plenty on the line, and I expect this to be the game of the day here at the Big Ten.
When you look, keep your eye obviously on things going on in the other tournaments across the country. Is there one in particular that you are most intrigued by of the other major leagues?
Not the other major leagues, but selfishly, my daughter is the director of operations down at VCU, and they're playing at Cap One, and so I have been kind of glued to what's been going on there. And of course, you combine that with, I'm sure you've addressed this, the death of a friend, John Feinstein, who was covering that tournament. I've sort of been focused on that a little bit, but I sort of control what I can control. I'm entertained by what I want to be entertained by, and I'm just a basketball fan, man. These are some of the best days of the year.
For sure. There's great hoop. It's such a bummer that Flagg rolled his ankle and he's not going to be part of Duke UNC tonight. But the ACC, the SEC, everyone going, and obviously Maryland, big part of what's going on in the Big Ten tonight. Let's actually wrap there, though. Chris, I'm glad you mentioned it. The terrible news that we got yesterday that John Feinstein's passed at the age of 69. There's been great tributes all around the sports world, but you knew him. Obviously, we know how much of a college basketball guy he was. I'm sure you guys... You could have talked for hours and probably at times did talk for hours about a sport that you guys both love. Do you have any either specific memories that you want to share or like your favorite Feinstein story that you want to share?
It's funny. Yeah. So he could be, he'd be a little loud and obnoxious, a little boisterous. We would have lunch.
Not John.
We would have lunch once a month in Tyson's Corner until he moved. He moved down to Farmville, Virginia, a couple of years ago. But he's one of those guys that his memory was photographic. It was scary photographic, and you would sit there at lunch and you'd say something like, God, I remember that Duke game, Duke Maryland, or say Duke North Carolina game from 1982. And you describe what happened, and John would look at you and he'd say, "Come on, that was 1983." He would correct the littlest things because he could. He just had this incredible recall, particularly as applied to the sport of college basketball. And he was a lot of fun to mess with. He just, he will be sorely missed if for no other reason that just the output of literature, things he wrote about college basketball, especially golf. I mean, nobody has that kind of resume, Craig, and I don't know anybody ever will.
No, the books, the columns, the everything over the years, the reporting. He actually had a column on Izzo come out on the day that we ultimately find out that he passed. Obviously, untimely and sudden passing, but. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Chris. Really appreciate it. Best to you guys out there. Sorry for the loss of your friend, and obviously good luck to the Terps tonight in Indy.
Good deal. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it.
Coach Naki with us here on the Hoffman Show. Again, Johnny Holiday and company getting going here at the top of the hour with the pregame show tip-off just after 6:30 tonight from Indianapolis there at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. When we get back... We're wrapping up because I just told you pregame starts at 6. That means we're done at 6, and thus it is time for Real Things Real People Said into Real Microphones. Yeah, your lip syncing's doing great on the radio, bro.
I think they should know that this is the last segment of the show for the week, so they should know what song I'm lip syncing.
Yeah, they can hear you. Say it on the radio.
Really?
They can also hear you on the stream today too, because of the home setup versus the in studio. Because I don't get the podcast feed down and then the thing and then yeah, I get actual program, and the program is what feeds the Everybody knew.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. What a day! I'm excited. What you doing anything fun this weekend, Anthony?
So after I leave here, I'm actually gonna go over to Nats Academy. Georgetown Prep is playing Gonzaga in baseball, and I told some of my kids that I will come support them since the game is actually really close by, and it's supposed to be a really good game. So yeah, I'm gonna go do that. They have another game tomorrow morning. Linnell wants to hoop. I don't know if I told you, Craig. Last time I hooped with Linnell was actually last Sunday morning. Last Sunday morning. Craig, you would not believe it. This dude, Linnell, was in there making shots. I couldn't believe it. Like, really making shots. He said he's been in the gym, so it looked like he had been in the gym. I can vouch for him. Whether or not he would beat me in a game 1-1, no.
I'm saying probably not still.
It might not be 11-2. It might actually be like 11-3. It's improvement.
That's better than when you.
Yeah.
Do you beat him?
That's not saying a lot.
You beat him 11-1.
I beat him 11-2 because he made a 3-pointer to start the game, and then 11-0. 11-0 run real quick.
I'm going to address something on the internet real quick, Anthony. We have someone named Sophia in the comments who thinks that we stole the concept of winners and losers in free agency from another video she found on YouTube yesterday.
Wow.
Some of y'all really need to get outside more. No one's ever done winners and losers of NFL free agency before. Before yesterday.
Ever in life.
Before yesterday. Why do I engage with this?
I mean, some people just really say some really dumb stuff.
If you're and now gotcha. I get paid whether I read your dumb comments or not. You don't get these moments of your life back. I'm at work. You're at home. Who got who? So we're going to block her. Report. I wish you could report as dumbass on YouTube in the comments. Misinformation. That works. Sorry everyone else had to deal with that. Just unbelievable idiocy on this planet. Really kind of a bummer. The good news is I'm not that stressed because I can just go run after. I'm going to go run this off. So if you see a dude running somewhere in the greater Washington district or Washington, D.C. area, it might be me starting in about 8 minutes, Anthony.
I'm about to say, you don't think there's going to be some other people running as well?
I said it might be. I didn't say it definitely is going to be.
Okay, yeah,
me.
that's fair.
So that's what I'm doing to start my weekend because I don't really have. So we're going to do some family time tomorrow. I'm pretty pumped about that. My mom's in town, and I get to see my niece. So I'm pretty pumped about that this weekend. And then I got a coach tomorrow morning, my fitness stuff, and then Sunday the weather's supposed to be kind of squirrely, so I can't do my long run on Sunday. So I was like, you know what? We get done early. I'm just gonna go and run after the show. So I got my water bottle. I've been hydrating.
That's lovely, man.
I'm gonna go run 8 miles now. But first, we're going to do real things real people said in real microphones.
Real things.
We're not gonna suck this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Anthony, hold on. I need you to do the hand signals again for what time the show's over because my camera's in the way and I couldn't see you. Yep, that time. Got it. Okay. It's a Friday edition of Real Things Real People Said into Real Microphones. Anthony, what's in the magical folder of sound today?
So we had a couple of players speak today, addressing the media after they signed their deals. We have Javon Kinlaw. He is a native of Washington, D.C., and
a real one.
He wants to let you guys know he's from D.C.
Well, I grew up in Northeast D.C., so I'm a real Skin fan, point blank, period. And I was just telling somebody when I was growing up, Trent Williams was on the team and Jordan Reed, and then I got to be teammates with them guys my rookie year. For me to be able to be on this team now is a full circle moment for me. And I know a lot about the transformation, man. It was in the blink of an eye. It's like you go from zero to hero, you know what I mean? And that's all I'm about, you know. That's kind of my life. And I can't wait to thrive with these guys, man. I feel so blessed, and I'm so happy to be here. Shoot, my whole family here. So
sounds like he's going to have a lot of ticket requests.
Yeah, that's probably the only, I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing, but
yeah, definitely both good and bad.
He got the money though.
Yeah, he'll be fine. He signed nice little deal. So congrats to Javon Kinlaw on the homecoming. Jonathan Jones, he never thought he was going to be here, but he saw the turnaround, was really impressed, and also talked to his old pal and old teammate Stephon Gilmore about playing for Dan Quinn, and he wanted in on the Commanders experiment as well.
Who are some of those people that you communicated with, and what was sort of the feedback you heard about why Dave Quinn was a good guy to play for?
You in the media, I can't tell you my sources, but yeah, just some of the guys in Dallas, that he had the opportunity to play with and coach, and so those guys, I called him. I'll give you one, Gilmore. I called him, and he's like, man, he's a phenomenal player, a phenomenal coach. You're going to enjoy playing for him. And I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, he's a phenomenal coach. It's going to be, one of the best decisions you can make. And so, as a guy that I trust a lot, in Gilmore, and so he recommended Coach Quinn a lot.
I'm really excited to talk to. I want to talk to Jonathan Jones in the middle of the season this year. I would love to talk to him, today if we could. But he played most of his career under Belichick. And Belichick's obviously one of the greatest coaches ever, but very different style than Dan Quinn, who's also a very, very good head coach. The way they go about conducting themselves in the locker room and the atmosphere they want in the building, I think is very different. I don't know how much Belichick ever talked about a brotherhood. So I'm curious to see how Jonathan Jones likes it here in D.C. That's our show. Good luck to the Terps. Quarterfinal against Illinois next here on the team, 980. Have a good weekend, everybody.